The Oklahoma Sooners added a big-time wide receiver commitment.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams, and we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners got a big commitment coming out of their junior day weekend. Daniel Odom, 4-star wide receiver out of St. John Bosco's High School in Southern California, Jay.
We got another kid out of California. That's the crazy part. So I know that we had some situations with the Matterdie kids, and it didn't seem like Oklahoma was going to have a chance to be able to pull anybody from out there again. And then Daniel Odom comes out of nowhere with this commitment. It was one of those that was honestly a surprise. He decided that, he enjoyed the weekend. And I had to go back and look. I was like, wait, is this his first time coming? Is this one of those situations where he got in and got so excited that he just wanted to commit immediately and potentially be something that fell off? No, he was here for the spring game last year. So this isn't his first time in Oklahoma. It wasn't his first time visiting. And it seemed like he was scouting it to see the opportunities. And Colin Kennedy from 247 dropped an article over there as soon as Illustrated. And one of the things he's mentioned was potential opportunity to play as a freshman. So he saw that a lot of freshmen play last year. And he's like, hey, if I come in there and I ball out, they may actually give me a shot.
Yeah, as Oklahoma rebuilds its wide receiver room with the departures of all those guys that left after the 2024 season, kind of the door's open for anybody, really. There's nothing definitive at the wide receiver position moving forward, aside from maybe Deion Burks. But even then, it was such an up and down season for him. I think all bets are off when you go beyond the 2025 season, even if Deion Burks isn't even here. You don't know who your starting wide receivers are going to be come 2026. So everything's on the table for this kid. Just looking at him as a player, 6'2", 190 pounds. Again, he was considered a 4-star prospect. Rivals had him as the number 25 wide receiver in the class. 247 Sports has him as the number 41 in the 247 Sports rankings, but in the composite, number 33, the number 25 player in California, which to me, that is intriguing right there. You're a top 25 player in the state of California. You're probably pretty good. You got a chance to watch some of his highlights. Jay, what did you think about the player?
Not only does he have the size, he has great body control. So he can get to the sideline, make those catches. He does the little stutters with his toes, but he also has enough breakaway speed to get away from defenders. It's funny because in some of the highlights on his huddle film, you could see him going about to blow past a player. And, the defense is stepping back. You saw some situations where they even had to bracket him. And because my favorite part about him is his route running ability, he was throwing those players off when it came to where he was going to go. Saw him go in and he can't cut right back out real quick, catching fade passes. You see him, like I said, doing the two toes or one toes right there at the sideline. He made a one-handed catch in one of them. You can tell that he has really good body control and can get his body and contort it in certain ways to make catches that are really tough to make. And at his size and his frame, he comes in at about the exact same size as what Zion Kearney is, and he has a refined ability to run routes. And so what excites me is his ability to run those routes and then to separate the defenders. It looks like defenders are nervous about him outrunning them. Even though he doesn't look the fastest, they still respect him. And that's, to me, probably the biggest asset you can get out of a player is that defenses require themselves to respect him no matter what.
I really liked his hands. He's got really soft hands. And I think that matters for a wide receiver. He's not fighting with the ball in the air. He's caressing it. He's accepting the ball as it comes to him. He's not battling the ball. JJ Hester, great size, great speed. How many times in 2024 do we see him fight with the football? That was not the case with Daniel Odom when you go turn on the highlights. I think I agree with you with the route running. I think he does a really, really good job at setting defenders up for double moves. He does a really good job at the top of his routes, making the defender think he's going one way and then changing direction and going the other. I really liked his ability to fight through contact. So many times cornerbacks were just grabbing onto him because they knew they were beat, and it did not disrupt his balance. It did not disrupt his speed, his ability to get to where he wanted to be to make the catch. Really liked what he was able to do after the catch. He's a physical player, and he'll take a hit. I mean, there were several times in these highlights where he's getting blasted as the ball's coming to him, and as he's making the reception, holds on to it, shows a lot of toughness, a lot of physicality. And I think that's what you're going to need. We saw it this year with the SEC, right? Nothing is going to be easy. There's not going to be a lot of easy routes to run against SEC cornerbacks, and referees a lot of times are going to let these guys play. You've got to be able to fight through hand fighting. You got to be able to fight through contact at the top of your stem and be able to continue your route and be in the spot that your quarterback expects you to be in to make the play. So a lot of really, really nice things out of Daniel Odom's game. I also, a lot of respect to the St. John Bosco offensive coordinator. He's not just relying on Daniel Odom's ability to win one-on-ones.
Right.
Like, is scheming him open too, using, quote unquote pick plays to get him open in space and then let him make plays after the catch. So a guy that, again, can win in a lot of ways, and that's what you got to have at wide receiver. And I'm not going to say he's CeeDee Lamb. I'm not going to do that, but that's what you loved about CeeDee Lamb, right? Is that he could win in a lot of different ways. And if Daniel Odom is able to come and make that kind of an impact early on in his career, I think they've got a potential star in the making. But again, he's going to have to come and work and continue to develop and continue to fill out his frame and get stronger. But I like what he's got to work with just as a junior in high school.
Yeah, and he doesn't show any signs of being afraid of the work or the grind. Coming from St. John Bosco, that's a school that's a powerhouse that's known for churning out talent. And so obviously he had to work his way up there in order to get the opportunity. And I believe that coming here, he's excited about the chance to actually being able to compete and coming in and taking somebody's job. And the kid's skill-wise, he's got it. And the good thing is, too, as kind of talked about, Jaden O'Neal, the 26 commit quarterback that we have in the class, they played ball with each other when they were younger as a youth. So schools are right up the street from each other. They know each other very well. And I kind of asked Jaden about that. And I was like, hey, so did you know this was coming? He was like, no, did not. Talked to him at the airport. And then I was like, Oklahoma's got to be in your top 10, right? And he's like, yeah, they're in the top 10. And I went back and looked. Daniel had dropped a top 6, and Oklahoma was in that top 6 with Miami, Washington, Texas, Tennessee.
Oregon.
He had Oregon. He had your big programs on there. And I'm going to be 100% honest. When I saw that list, I was like, oh, okay, this is probably a NIL type situation. So it's going to be a bag. It's going to be definitely involved in this one. Then he committed here. So either A, we are one of the bag schools, or he really liked it at Oklahoma. But I think truthfully, he really enjoyed his visit. I know he's raved about it. The picture of him and BV talking in his office was cool. You could tell that there was engagement there. So I'm excited for him to come in. I know that people want to jump in the comments and say he's going to decommit or whatever just because people want to be negative this week or this year. But a lot of these kids do see the future, and they see the vision, especially with Ben Arbuckle talking about the way that he likes to use wide receivers in the offense. These players, all of them coming out of junior day, have talked about, they see the vision and they're excited.
Yeah, the Jaden O'Neal piece, I think that matters because we've seen how those long-lasting friendships can matter in a recruitment, whether it's Michael Hawkins and Devon Mitchell, whether it's David Stone and Michael Patterson McDonald. Like, these guys, they're connected. And you could see Jaden O'Neal's excitement whenever the commitment came out. He quote tweeted it and shared his thoughts and enthusiasm for Daniel Odom and coming to Oklahoma. So it's a big time commitment. Again, he's going to have to get on campus and he's going to have to go earn a spot. But in a Ben Arbuckle system that's going to run a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for playing time for all of these wide receivers. So excited for what he brings. A guy that can play on the outside. I think that's where he's primarily going to be used, but can also line up in the slot as well. He's got a little bit of that flexibility to him because he's such a good route runner. The Oklahoma Sooners have some good news coming in 2025 because they got a lot of guys returning. Where do they rank in SEC returning production? We'll discuss coming up next year on Locked On Sooners.
Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook, whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling an MVP, or even betting on the coin toss. FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Something to check out. You'll know there'll be Saquon Barkley prop bets to go along with, Jalen Hurts. Got to support our Sooners, right? So make sure you pick Jalen Hurts, hopefully to score a touchdown or to win. And the good thing with the live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. It's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners are bringing back a lot, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But based on returning production, things are looking pretty promising on the offensive side of the ball, Jay.
Yeah, shout out to Dog Stats over there on the Xbird app. He's been putting together, he has a massive repository, Google Sheets that has all of the players' production he's been putting together in preparation for the Bill Connelly article that's about to drop. And we know once his article jumps in, ESPN will have all of the details about returning production. But John, when I looked at this initial numbers and stuff, Oklahoma's returning like 178% in passing yards next season. But that's not the thing that jumped out to me the most. When I looked at the numbers for quality production that's returning, and the way he listed is PFF grades of 70 plus or 4 or 5-star recruiting ranking, Oklahoma has 41 players in total, coming with 30 of them on the defensive side of the ball. And that's number one in the SEC. So it sounds like Oklahoma has a very good chance, barring injury, as we mentioned before, as we stay healthy, Oklahoma has a really good chance to make waves next season because they're bringing back a lot of players.
Yeah, I'm going to play a little bit of the devil's advocate here, Jay, and you can tell me why I'm wrong. But I think a lot of this is going to be boosted by guys that played at lower levels of competition last year and are making a jump. And so I'm excited about what Oklahoma has and what they brought in. And yet there's still a lot that needs to be proven on the field because you got John Mateer going from playing Washington State schedule. Now you got to play one of the toughest schedules in the country, if not the toughest schedule in the country. You got Javonte Gibson, a talented player in his own right, but he's making a big jump, and he's going to factor into a lot of that returning production, those two guys, because they are bringing a lot of production with them to Oklahoma. Defensively, obviously, the returning production stands out, and you did not add – I mean, you added maybe one significant player on defense through the transfer portal and Kendall Daniels.
I'd say two. Kendall Daniels and Marvin Jones Jr.
Marvin Jones.
Both of those will probably be two significant pieces to add. But no,
forgive me.
Great point.
Forgive me about Marvin Jones Jr. That's going to be that's the dude I said was going to break out a few weeks ago. No, so those two guys, like, they've fit into a defense that has produced, and they've got talent, and they've shown a lot. On the offensive thing, it's a lot of what ifs still for me.
You're not wrong there, though, John, and I can't refute anything you're saying. The one thing that I will point out, though, that kind of goes a little opposite of what you're saying here, goes with your devil's advocate play, which, playing on the opposite side, I guess the angel's advocate, we'll call it that. But returning receiving yards is only at 100%. So statistically, the receiving yards that we lost and come back in, we're about at the same number. So, I mean, the guys that we did lose, we lost some numbers, but not a lot.
Not really.
But we're returning 99.2% of our running yards from last season. That, to me, is a lot bigger in comparison. O-line snaps at 84%, based upon the statistics. Tackles, 88%. Returning pressures, 87%. Really, only one you really hurting on interceptions is 77%, but that's because, Woody Washington's gone. You lost Billy Bowman, so Danny Stutzman. You got all those seniors you're losing on the defense, but truth be told, Des Malone But truth be told, John, that 178% of the passing yards, what just makes it wild is just the fact that we're bringing in a quarterback that put up more yards by himself, regardless of the lower or higher. He put up more offensive yards than our entire offense did by itself combined. And that to me is still kind of something to consider. Plus, you're bringing in the double factor here. Quarterback, offensive coordinator, especially ones that's been together for 2 years. We saw what Cam Ward did when he left. Ben Arbuckle went down there to Miami. Looked like the same dude he looked like at Washington State. Ben Arbuckle knows how to coach it because he did it with Cam Ward. So all we need to do is get John Mateer to go out there and put up about 3/4 of that production. The defense will do most of the work. And we know the defense can do it because the defense did it all last year. So totally get your hesitance because it's fair. It's very fair. You didn't say anything that was unfair at all whatsoever. But I still got a lot of cautious optimism with this because the return of production, that's some nice numbers.
It just needs to fit together. It just all needs to come together. And
be healthy.
As optimistic as I can be, they've still got to prove it on the field. You know, this is a team that, listen, the offense was bad. And going into 2025, kind of my thought process is it can't get any worse than what it was. I think it has the potential to get significantly better simply because you have a quarterback that has a mentality that I think is a little bit greater than what we had. He's an experienced player. He's not going to turn the ball over as frequently. He's a tough player. We've seen him play with physicality. I mean, that's not going to be a dude that's going to be rocked by, the SEC competition that he faces. Is it a step up in competition? 100%. But we saw it this last year. A guy like Diego Pavia, he can make that step up and still be successful.
Yeah.
So listen, I think that there's a lot of promise here, but when you start seeing all these returning production numbers come out, when it includes all the transfers that Oklahoma's bringing, and you're returning a lot of the offensive line snaps from an offensive line that was just kind of okay and maybe at times bad for much of the 2024 season, I can understand why people would be reluctant to be excited about all of that returning production, especially on the offensive line and at running back, when it really wasn't until the last half of the season that we started to see anything promising out of the run game, out of the running back room, out of the offensive line. And then even still, it was a roller coaster ride. Some of it because of your passing attack that just could never really get going. Some of it because your offensive line was down several starters throughout the entire season. But for whatever reason, or for whatever it is, it's going to be hard for me to be like, yeah, all that returning production is great, but I need to see it on the field. Again,
and that's fair.
And this is where I keep coming back to the Michigan game. If they go out and they put up a 30 spot on Michigan, win or lose that game, hopefully win it. But if they go put a 30 spot on Michigan, I'll feel great. Even shoot, they score 27 and they win that game, I'll feel really good about the direction of the offense.
And I totally agree with you there too. And that's a very good point. And I like the point that you pointed out, like with, Vanderbilt, right? So Vanderbilt brings in Tim Beck as the offensive coordinator, and then you bring in Diego Pavia as the quarterback. They were matched together at New Mexico State when they had that win at Auburn, and we talked about, the defensive coordinator, Nate Drelling, who was DC, held him to 10 points. But we talked about that. But Diego Pavia did that at New Mexico State, lower level, and his offensive coordinator joined him when they went to Vanderbilt. And so you kind of got a case study as to prove it. The question is, how much of a gamer is John Mateer? That is basically what we're trying to figure out. And if he is as much of a gamer he showed out against Washington in the, is Apple Cup is what they call it up there? Yep. Yeah. He balled out in the Apple Cup and got the dub. And so if he brings that type of tenacity that he showed there into the SEC, I think we should be fine. Heck, that Washington may not be the same fully with Jed Fish in the way he set up, but Jed Fish gave us problems, at Arizona, and that Washington squad, when Kalen DeBoer was there, they gave SEC teams problems, and the Washington wasn't terrible in the Big Ten, which is a very comparable conference to the SEC.
A lot of things happened on Tuesday regarding Oklahoma. Senior Bowl stuff. Jim Knowles spoke. So many different things to discuss. We'll just touch on it coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, let's start with Billy Bowman. He had a great day at the Senior Bowl. When you watch these individual drills come across your social media feed, I want you to understand how difficult it is on defensive backs. Anytime that they're in a one-on-one drill, they are set up to fail.
Yeah.
The one-on-one passing drill is set up for the quarterback and the wide receiver to win those. And Billy Bowman had a fantastic day in coverage, winning a number of his one-on-one drills at the Senior Bowl.
If you know me, I always say the hardest position to play in the football field is defensive back. Don't care what anybody says. I think that's the number one toughest one because you're not only like offensive linemen who are always going backwards, but you're guessing somebody really, really fast in front of you, what they're going to do. Are they going to block you for a run? Are they going to go in? They're going to go out? They're going to run past you? They're going to stop? You're always in a guessing game. Plus, you got to watch the quarterback to make sure they don't run. There's so many variables that come in there that makes it tough for you because, like you said, you're always at a disadvantage. Whereas with quarterbacks, they can, there's the one setting things up. They got a lot of thinking to do, but they have outlets if they really need to get rid of the ball. So to me, that's the toughest position. And Billy went out there. He's out there playing. And he's watching and trying to, prepare for the routes, in, out, the way he's able to press people. Everybody was pointing out he's considered one of the more underrated dudes that was there. And of course, he decided to haunt the state of Alabama once more as he went out there and got an interception on Jalen Milroe on an out route. This is like the third time that Jalen Milroe's thrown an interception to an Oklahoma player on an out route this season, whereas three of them, fourth interception, 3 out routes, and only 2 of them really counted because 2 of them was in game and this one was in this drill. But hey, Billy was eyeballing him, and he was just watching him break off of that route, John, was so impressive. And he's got that breakaway speed to where he can always make up for situations. Like, I always think about how he was able to go across the field and get Luther Burden on that 4th down. It just sends chills down my body every time. I'm just like, yeah, he booked it to get there. And it felt like he did the exact same thing in that route when he was playing defense.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of an Antoine Winfield Jr. who played up at Minnesota. Coming out, I can't remember what draft class he was, but I was covering the Dallas Cowboys back then, and he was one of my favorite safeties in that class and really wanted him to land with the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, every single year there was a safety I wanted the Dallas Cowboys to draft that they did not. But he ends up at Tampa Bay, and he's had a really productive career, but kind of an undersized guy, but a really good athlete and a really good player making plays on the football. And that just kind of is what Billy Bowman reminds me of a little bit. He's going to fly under the radar a little because he's undersized, 5'9", a little bit more than 5'9", I think is what he came in, or maybe 5'10" and change is what he came in at in his measurables. But great athlete, good speed, good cover ability. And I think he made himself some money in Senior Bowl practices on Tuesday. Jim Knowles, I guess, shared some thoughts with Penn State players that Penn State released. Jay, you want to break those down and what he had to say to his new team?
Yeah, simply put, he kind of stood up there and he talked to them about Penn State. So as a kid, they had 3 channels and they always sat there and watched the Nittany Lions. And as he grew up, that was a dream. That was something he aspired, was to be a part of that team by either playing or coaching or something of that nature. And he 100% pointed out to the players there that he's from North Philly, not like the suburban kids are there. He's from North Philly where he had to ride the subway in order to go to school. And so he pointed out to them, this is home for him. This is where he's from. Growing up as a kid, he wanted to play at Penn State. He didn't make it there, but he was at Cornell. He coached at Cornell, so he's been in the area. And now, I guess you could say a dream come true for Jim Knowles has been the opportunity to get to Penn State and now be back home where he came from. And so I know Sooner fans are mad, feel like Oklahoma got played in this entire situation, but I'm going to be honest. I don't think the Penn State opportunity was even available when the first conversation started until it got out, based upon whoever leaked it, that Jim Knowles was looking to depart Ohio State. And the minute Penn State lost their coach, Tom Allen, in the night to Clemson, they probably picked up the phone and said, hey, what we need to do to get you to come back home. And at that point, that was what got him excited. He's from that area, from North Philly. So it makes sense. When you hear his voice, you're like, oh, yeah, he's definitely from Philly.
Final thing for us to touch on, Baker Mayfield got selected to the Pro Bowl to replace Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts going to be playing in the Super Bowl 59 here in a couple weeks. So it's the right one. Baker Mayfield was kind of snubbed, but actually you look at the quarterbacks that got selected, it's hard to argue against any of those other quarterbacks, but Mayfield had a wonderful season and is rightfully getting honored with a Pro Bowl selection.
Yeah, it's great. And he's one of the first Buccaneers to go to multiple Pro Bowls at quarterback. Like, it's not something that happens to my Buccaneers very often, which is really weird. We had Tom Brady there for a bit. But he's one of the very few because, truth be told, my Bucs have not produced, real quarterbacks. We had I love Trent Dilfer. He was a great guy, but he was just not that great of an NFL quarterback. Brad Johnson got us our first Super Bowl, which was awesome, but Brad was really not that good. He was throwing it to Keyshawn Johnson on a regular basis, and the defense ran it. And then from there, you had like the revolving door of quarterbacks. And now we get Baker Mayfield, which to me really embodies the heart, soul, and work ethic that I always saw out of Tampa Bay when Tony Dungy was there and everything. I am so glad that he continues to get recognized. He set records, personal records, as well as team records with his statistics. And so I think that now Baker has found the home to where he'll be able to continue to ascend up for the next few years that he's got left. And then, hopefully ride out in the sunset as a Buccaneer, retired Buccaneer.
What are your thoughts on Jalen Hurts against the Kansas City Chiefs, in the Super Bowl? Just your initial thoughts. We're not an NFL podcast. We're not Locked On Eagles, Locked On Chiefs. Make sure you go check out those shows. But we got thoughts on the Super Bowl. What do you think? And it's going to be a fun matchup. A lot of Sooners featured in this game.
Yeah, 8 Sooners total, 7 on active rosters. As McKay Matower is still on the IR. Leads, college football. We have the most players in the NFL. I think it's the second or third year in a row. Yep. Basically, every time Kansas City goes to the Super Bowl, we got a lot of players in there, which is always a plus. But no, I think Jalen Hurts has the opportunity to prove to the naysayers and the doubters that he can be the reason why they win. And I totally understand the criticism of him. The team basically goes based upon how he plays. It's always about how his quarterback play is if he's needing to throw the ball. The good thing is having Saquon there running the ball, a Penn State nitty lion, he can run the ball. There's a good chance that Philly can find a way to keep the ball out of Kansas City's hands. So it's going to be a fun game. I'm excited about watching the Super Bowl. What's that in? Is that this weekend?
Like
Next weekend. Yeah, next weekend. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to watch that game and kind of see how it goes.
I think this is a better Eagles team, and it pains me to say that as a Dallas Cowboys fan. This is a better Eagles team than the one that the Chiefs played 2 years ago, and Jalen played a really good game in that Super Bowl, and it's just, again, it's Patrick Mahomes, and it's the Chiefs. This seems like a better team, a team that's better set up to go and beat the Chiefs than the one did 2 years ago. This team can really run the football. It doesn't have to be all on Jalen Hurts, but Kellen Moore's got that thing humming offensively. They just put up 55 points in the NFC Championship game over the Washington Commanders. So it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a really good back and forth. Another one that just goes down to the wire. A lot of fourth quarter action. It's going to be very, very dramatic. It's going to be fun, man. I'm looking forward to watching it play out, seeing if Creed Humphrey can get another one, see if Samaje Perine can get his first Super Bowl ring, and if the Chiefs can make history and win a three-peat for the first time in Super Bowl history. I don't know. So many fun storylines. As a Dallas Cowboy fan, I do not want to see the Eagles win again or win again. They won one in the last decade. As a Sooners fan, it wouldn't hurt to see Jalen Hurts get his first ring either. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports on Twitter. Also, go check out his channel on YouTube, Unfair Sports, where he covers the Sooners and all of college football as well. Follow me at John9Williams. You can also read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. So go follow and check us out over there as well. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer.
Sooner.